Royal Hogs. They have been the center of controversy for some time. They were really strong for a while, but before that, they actually weren't that great. For a long time, they were just, kind of mediocre. Just kind of, you'd see them here and there, kind of as a gimmick joke win condition, but they weren't super powerful. Until they got that minor attack speed on their initial attack buff, that's when they became really strong and really meta. But then they nerfed it back down a little bit, and since that nerf, they just haven't been the same. They were really popular, really meta for a long time, and then, I don't know, they just kind of not completely fell off the map, but they just haven't been like the same strength that they were at when they were super strong. The biggest thing to note about them, though, is they are not countered by the same things that you would see to counter more traditional win conditions, like, say, the Hog Rider, or even like a Giant or a Golem or a Lava Hound, in the sense that, like, an Inferno Tower may completely shut down a Hog Rider and can destroy a Golem, but it doesn't do too much to the Royal Hogs because there's 4 of them. They're pseudo-swarmy. Now, that being said, it does actually make them susceptible to spells, which opens up this door for all kinds of spell bait decks. And you guys are probably familiar, but Royal Hogs, you generally see them in 2 different archetypes. Either one, split lane decks, which this is not so much, and secondly, if not both of these, that would be heavy or medium spell bait decks. So I'm talking like fireball bait, poison bait, mostly fireball, honestly. If you want to say anything, it is pretty much one of the most popular spells, and it has been since the beginning of the game. It's just a very universal all-around card. You see it in a lot of decks. And what I'm getting at here is a lot of these decks that have the Royal Hogs in them, they're going to have a lot of other cards that are, useful and prevalent in spell bait style decks, because you're really trying to take advantage of them using their spell and capitalize on that. So if they use their spell on, like, your Royal Hogs, essentially, they use their fireball, it'll completely shut them down. So what you have in here instead is you got Barbarians, you got Musketeer, and you've got Flying Machine. And all 3 of these cards are cards that are going to be traditionally susceptible against or to fireball. So they're likely to use their fireball or their poison or their rocket or their lightning or whatever spell they may have on your Musketeer or on your Flying Machine if you cycle it in the back. Or maybe you're constantly using your Barbarians to counter their Hog Rider, right? Then what you're going to do is you're going to see that they use their fireball on the Barbarians every time. You can safely put down the Musketeer. And another thing I want to point out here is, figure out, like, how to juke their spells as well, because you don't want to always let your Hogs and everything die to the same fireball as, like, in one of these replays. If not this one, I was blathering on, I wasn't looking at the replay, but in one of them you'll see, like, I keep letting the Hogs go in and die to the same fireball that also hits, like, my Musketeer or my Flying Machine, and it's just bad placement on my part. I might not even include that replay because it was probably an earlier on one when I was kind of learning the deck, but it's just something to think about. Like, don't clump them all together. Yeah, it's spell bait, but don't give them huge spell value by having 9 elixirs worth of cards in one little spot that they can just fireball. So as you saw in the end of that replay, I switched up the placement a little bit. He was constantly snowballing my bats every time, and so I put the bats down in a different spot this time because he had done it to me like 2 or 3 times already, and that was my fault for falling for the same thing so many times. But since I had done it so many times, he got used to that and used the snowball in the same spot. I put the bats kind of in the top left where they didn't die to the snowball and they could take out his balloon. So similar kind of mindset with whatever spell they're running. You want to bait it out, but you can also kind of try to juke them in a way. If they're constantly using their fireball on those Barbarians every time, they send in Hog, you use Barbarians right in front of the tower, they fireball it every time. Switch up the placement of the Barbarians, or maybe don't put them down at all. Use something else in your deck that's going to, not take as much damage from that fireball. I know it sounds weird, but, like, I don't know, Barbarian Barrel it, or use, like, the Bandit or something at first, and then they'll see that you didn't use the Barbarians, and then maybe they won't use their fireball. Or maybe their fireball will go to waste and just, be wasted on your Bandit, get a little bit of chip damage onto the tower, and then you can use the Barbarians after that. So a huge element of spell bait in this deck. But mostly you're trying to bait out their spells so that you can send in your Royal Hogs. That's your win condition. That's how you get most of your damage onto their tower with this deck, is the Royal Hogs, if not all of your damage. Well, no, that's not fair, because you do have Musketeer, and you do have Flying Machine, and you do have Bandit, and all these cards are definitely cards that can connect to their tower. Musketeer and Flying Machine do a great job of chipping away from afar, and Bandit, if unanswered, can definitely dash onto their tower. So that's pretty much it for, the core concepts and theories behind this deck, or strategy behind this deck. Each card kind of has its role, and I'll go through that really briefly and mention some card replacements. And then, I actually do want to play some live matches with this deck. I'd have some awesome replays to share with you guys, but I'd also like to jump into a live match or two at the end of the video here. So the bats, they're not so vital in this deck. You could probably replace them with, another cycle card. They're not a heavy spell bait card. They're only really a zap bait or a snowball bait card. So they don't play that same role as the Barbarians, the Musketeer, and the Flying Machine, and the Royal Hogs, right? But there is a slight element of spell bait, I guess you could say that. Now, one thing that is really interesting to me in this deck is it doesn't run any heavy spells, and I do want to point that out while I'm going through the cards here. For our two spells, we have Barbarian Barrel and Snowball, and both of these are light spells. So this deck doesn't run anything that you can use to finish off their tower at low HP. You can't cycle through Fireball twice to destroy their tower. You just don't have that extra spell firepower in the deck. So you really are relying on those hogs to connect to their tower and do the damage. That's really your only source of reliable damage onto the tower. The other sources, like I mentioned earlier, are not really reliable. You can't always count on the Bandit being able to dash in and connect to the tower. So that's pretty much it as far as your two spells go. Now, as I mentioned, the Musketeer and the Flying Machine, well, the two spells, as usual, replace them, with, slapping a poison in there, a zap, whatever other light spell. I've run variations of this deck with poison, and it works out really well, too. You can try Earthquake, too, if you want. For the Musketeer and the Flying Machine, those are your two range support cards. Go-to replacements right off the top of my head. Hunter, Ewiz, Archers. Maybe Archers not so much, because you do want these kind of fireball bait style cards. Alright guys, this isn't particularly the best replay, but you can get a sense of the kind of element of spell bait. Like my opponent doesn't use his Mega Knight on my Royal Hogs the first time, which is a big mistake on his part. He's running Mega Knight in this deck, and it is a direct counter to the Royal Hogs, but he doesn't seem to use it. Barbarians there being a great counter to the Hog Rider. I think what he does is he uses the Mega Knight early on something else. He doesn't have an elixir for it now, so he can't use it on this first batch of Royal Hogs. So it gets kind of, messy for him. But anyway, as I was mentioning just before we switched to this replay, the Flying Machine and the Musketeer you could replace with like Ewiz, Hunter. I'm trying to think Archers if you want to, but they're not super spell baity. Maybe like an Ice Wizard or a regular Wizard could go in there as well. Anything that's really susceptible to Fireball. If you want to have fun with it, you could honestly put an Elixir Pump in this deck. I know they're not in the best spot right now, but it's a good card. So what I was talking about here, he used his Mega Knight there. He knew that I have Royal Hogs in this deck, but maybe he wasn't thinking about it. Or maybe he's just not that advanced of a player to try to keep in mind exactly what cards I have and the best counter to them. I saw that he used his Mega Knight, and think of that as like a spell, because the Mega Knight has the Enter the Arena effect. It does splash damage to all the Hogs, pushes them back, slows them down for a second by pushing them back, or through pushing them back, and then does AoE damage to them with his auto attack. So he counters them really hard. So once I saw that he used that, I capitalized by sending the Royal Hogs in right after, once the Mega Knight was fully shut down. Now there, that wasn't really the best use of Barbarians because of his Wizard, but I used the Giant Snowball to push the Wizard back, and that definitely bought me some extra time so that the Barbarians could wreck that Hog Rider without taking too much damage there. Now the next card that we have in this deck is, well, the Little Piglets themselves. Honestly, you could easily replace them with a lot of different things in this deck. It could be, it could be replaced with like maybe a Battle Ram or a Ram Rider. Honestly, another thing to be really fun in this deck, guys, would be a Balloon, because that gives you a huge element of Fireball bait. Now, they're probably not going to use a Poison, maybe a Rocket, probably not a Lightning on your Balloon, but if they're running Fireball, Balloon is a direct counter to Fireball now. Or, excuse me, other way around. Fireball is a direct counter to Balloon, is what I'm trying to say. It fully shuts it down if you time it and place it correctly. The Balloon might get a little bit of death damage off on the tower, but I think that there's a sweet spot and timing that you can put it where it'll get no death damage onto the tower. So, Balloon would be a great card in this deck. Oh, look at that play my opponent made. He accidentally or maybe purposely zapped my tower. So you can tell right there that kind of puts him at a maybe low skill player or lower skill player, or maybe he was just messing around or made a mistake. Anyway, so other replacements for the Royal Hogs would just be another win condition. You could make it a tank deck, but I would go more for like a aggressive win condition like a Ram Rider or a Battle Ram. And of course for the Bandit, you could go for another dash unit or charge unit like maybe the Prince, or just another mini tank like the Royal Ghost, or even like the Knight or the Valkyrie would work in there pretty well. Bandit isn't super core in this deck, I feel like. She's a great card, but she's not super vital. You might even have fun and put something like a Lumberjack in there. Be my guest. Let me know how it goes. Alright guys, let's go ahead and jump on into a match here. If you're new to the channel or you're not familiar, like usual, I play on my phone here. Or sometimes I play on my alt account on the computer. But anyway, we spectate from the computer there. Anyway, let's jump on into this live match, and I'll start talking about my decision making here. Alright, he has golden archers, so he definitely likes those archers, that's for sure. You don't see golden cards too commonly in classic challenges, but occasionally you will. And it looks like this is one of those times. He's got golden royal recruits as well. That's kind of interesting. They're not a super meta card right now. I do really like them, though, honestly. Royal recruits are like one of my favorite cards in the entire game. But they're not very great. Now he's got Wizard, which is unfortunate for me because that's a pretty good counter to my Royal Hogs. Regardless, Royal Hogs plus the Musketeer there get a good chunk of damage off onto that right tower. Barbarians are doing a bunch of damage on the left tower. Let's get, say, a flying machine or something down here to take out that Wizard. Come on, get the Wizard. Alright, good. And let's get some bats down here. Now, he's definitely going to take out my tower here, but you'll see that I got some good damage onto both of his towers. So it's not too big of a deal yet. We'll go ahead and... I'm thinking probably left tower is what I want to focus on at this point. He's more likely to push left anyway. Oh, not bad, because Bandit's going to do a good job of not destroying the Musketeer, but getting her real low. And then the tower can finish it off, or her off, as long as she doesn't get any support there. Let's go ahead and we're going to cycle Muskie in the back here. And then we're going to probably Royal Hogs, I'm thinking. Okay, that's a lot of elixir invested right now. So we're going to send in the Royal Hogs here, and we're going to try and snowball this to push all that away a little bit. Alright, nice. Everything's split up pretty well. So that tower is going to go down. Now, I do need to be careful here because he's going to probably push pretty hard on the left here. So I'm going to Barbarian Barrel all of this. And then I'm going to Barbs there and distract all of that. And then he's got the mini P.E.K.K.A, but my Barbarians are doing a great job of mowing everything down. Alright, let's Royal Hogs in the right here. And then let's just support all this. I'm going to go ahead and snowball that just to buy me a little bit of extra time. Deny some of the damage. Royal Hogs are doing some serious work on that right tower there, so that was really good for me. Let's get a flying machine down this time in the right, and let's see what my opponent is going to do. Here comes the Royal Recruits. We're going to Barbarians kind of down here, and then we're going to Bandit here. We're going to Bar Barrel to get all those recruits, as well as that Musketeer in the back, and then we're going to get our own Musketeer down, and I got to watch out for that. Oh, there we go, okay. Royal Giant. I was thinking the Wizard would cleave all the bats, but anyway, let's go in on the right here. Let's send everything in. Let's push that guy back. And Royal Hogs are going to finish off the tower, maybe. Yay! Alright, there we go. Give him the Chinese New Year piggy emote. Give him a good game. He gives me a wow. Maybe he thought he had that in the bag, but unfortunately, he did not. Royal Hogs, cute little piglets, pulling ahead at the end there. Taking the W for me. That is it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have made it this far, you are awesome. You rock. I really appreciate it. Be sure to leave the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. That helps out the channel to grow. And if you're new, consider subscribing. You can hit, oh, I always point the wrong direction. You can hit that little burger down there that my microphone is blocking. That guy right there to subscribe, or just, hit the subscribe button on the channel. Other than that, I want to know what you guys have to say, so go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and have a good night.